Up next, we have someone who's been at the forefront of AI for 25 years, if not more, as a researcher and entrepreneur. He's here today to take us on a journey towards brain interfaces for human superintelligence. A warm welcome to Trent McConaghy, co-founder and CTO of Ocean Protocol. Welcome, Trent.
All right, hello everyone. It's really my pleasure to be here. And what started as just felt like a smallish idea many months ago. It's wonderful to see it come together with all of you here today, with all these wonderful partners and collaborators. As a hint towards where I'm going, I brought a mild exoskeleton with me today. Knee injury, but think of it as a start. Imagine so much more, and augmenting me to run faster and all that, right? And what about if we can augment our brains to think faster? And if we take that to the nth degree, what can happen? So stay tuned. Here we go. And let's see here. Go here. Okay, that's me. I'm Trent. That's me. I'm Trent. So the talk today is BCI accelerationism, human superintelligence by accelerating brain interfaces. Let's zoom in. So first of all, I'm going to talk towards cognitive enhancement. This is, this plot, the x-axis is time, starting from 1950 all the way till now. The y-axis is amount of compute going into training a given AI model. It's a pretty well-known plot. Notice that the y-axis is exponential, so each bar along is another 10x, 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 10x. And so notice, we have this upwards linear trend. That means it's exponential growth. And starting in about the year 2010 or so, it goes even more steep exponentially, right? So this is basically the amount of compute power going into any given AI models. And what it's saying is that, we even had exponential growth back in the day from the first simple AIs of the 1950s, linear perceptrons, that sort of thing. But then starting at about 2011, 2012 or so, this is when deep neural networks started to take off, right? So basically taking, nonlinear perceptrons and making them super big and throwing tons of compute and data at them, right? So more of Moore's law has turned out to be a key thing that helps to unlock AI, right? And ever since then, we've had deep learning taken to the nth degree further. And then starting in 2017, transformers, which actually helped to accelerate things that much more. So these days, AI itself is growing at about 10x a year in terms of compute abilities. About 3.3x of that from the algorithms, 3.3x of that from data, Moore's law, et cetera. The point is, we're on this roller coaster for the future. 10x a year is insane. We're used to 5 or 10% growth. 10x for this particular field, there is starting to be this giant sucking sound for energy, for compute, for data, and all of that, because there's so much money to be made and so much power to be maintained. So we are racing towards the future faster than ever. And with that, in the next 1 to 3 years, it's widely predicted to get to artificial general intelligence, AGI, a term coined by Ben, the speaker that is following after me, Ben Goertzel, where he's talking about artificial superintelligence and AGI. And so 1 to 3 years away, where these things are going to be par with humans. And then, another 10x, 10x, 10x after that, 3 more years, 1,000x more. So that's going to be a superintelligence, right? So in the next 3-6 years, we're going to hit AGI, then ASI, artificial superintelligence. Everything is going to change. We're going to see more change in the next 5 or 10 years than we've seen in the last 5,000. And if your brain has trouble believing that, mine too. I keep trying to tell my brain, like, it keeps hitting cognitive dissonance. How can this be? How can this be? Our brains like to think linearly, but we're about to see the most massive upheaval in how society is, how we're organized, all of that, in the next 5 to 10 years. And we can be scared of it, or we can treat it like a grand adventure and say, how do we play a role in it? How can we be part of this grand adventure, not just for the next 5 years, but the next 50 and 5,000, right? And that's really how I think about it. And then if we think about grand adventures and inflection points, we can also look to history. So this is sort of a summary of what happened with the Industrial Revolution. So the y-axis is basically social development index, how effective humans are, how happy we are, lifespan, all that, right? And there was milestones along the way to help us do better. Things like, domesticated oxen, horses, written language, numbers, printing press, even coffee, right? That helped to augment us cognitively. And notice, though, on the far right, it's a giant jump, right? And that's just in the last 500 years. What happened? The steam engine. right? That went from basically muscles from biology, from humans and oxes and so on, to muscles from machines. Machines can be copied and pasted. They can be replicated 1,000 times. If you're making more money, you just make way more of them, right? So we augmented human muscle with machines. Well, we can also do the same thing with thoughts themselves, with our brains. We can augment our brains with silicon connected by brain-computer interfaces. And this is just starting to happen now, right? There's been some brain-computer interfaces going back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, but now we've got the AI to help connect the dots. We've got way better sensors. Everything is much better. And so we're now, I see, at an inflection point where we're not only augmenting muscle, but augmenting brains. And this is what will connect the dots to the ASIs, right? So with these artificial superintelligences, there's going to be these machines that are 1,000x smarter than us as humans. And we as humans, we look down to the ants, and we can't really relate to them. They can't relate to us. From their perspective, we're gods to them. They can't even comprehend what it's like to be a human. So when we look at these ASIs that are 1,000x smarter than us, it's going to be very, very hard for us to comprehend what it's like to be 1,000x smarter. What is beyond consciousness? What are the levels above, right? But what if we can actually get to a level playing field, be competitive with these ASIs, be collaborative with them, be at the same mental plane, not by pulling them down to our level, but by rising to their level. How? By augmenting our brains via brain-computer interfaces. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So how I'm going to do it is I'm going to start with the status quo. What are some of the technologies out there today that are taking us closer to this, that are pieces of the puzzle that we can combine in novel ways as builders, as scientists, as engineers, as entrepreneurs to actually pull us towards this such that we as humanity can have a role in the future side by side as collaborators with these artificial superintelligences. So I'm going to talk about current devices. First of all, we have eye tracking. This came out in the Apple Vision Pro and otherwise. And it's actually windows into the brain. If you look at this high-res image of an iris, you can actually learn a lot about it. And actually, researchers in the last few years are starting to treat it as if it's a brain-computer interface because there is so much information there. And of course, you can do it at fast speeds, too, for typing and so on. I'm going to give a brief survey of a few well-known brain-computer interfaces. There's EEGs that go back to the 70s. You all have heard of Stephen Hawking, the famous physicist who had locked-in syndrome. And how did he get famous? He wrote a bunch of mainstream books. But wait a minute. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't move at all, right? How did he do it? Well, he actually had this scanner, a headband that was scanning electrical signals on his forehead and using that to type. So he would sit there, not moving, but typing, writing books, book after book after book. And he was using EEGs, electroencephalography, and that's just sensors for the electrical signals on the surface of your skin that are echoes of your brainwaves. And it's actually not great, doesn't measure that much, but it's a start. It's enough to type from. But then we can get to some more modern, more advanced stuff. And so the FNIRS, how that works is it shoots infrared signals into your brain. And your brain, some of them get absorbed, some of them don't in various ways. And then the echoes coming back, it can detect the different changes. So it's sort of like radar on a bat or whatever, but in this case with infrared signals. And you can actually get a whole helmet for it, like we see here with this. This is a kernel helmet. But you can also zoom in on just one region, such as, say, the visual cortex, which is in the back of your brain. And then with that, you can sort of get a window into the mind's eye. So if I'm closing my eyes and imagine a bouncing elephant, then the FNIRS can pick up that bouncing elephant as sort of like a low-res 2D movie, like a black and white TV screen from the 1950s, okay? So, and this is not invasive. This is just something on the outside of your scalp, which is pretty cool, right? Of course, we can get invasive. We can do like Neuralink, Elon Musk's company and otherwise, where you crack open the skull, put a chip in, and then use that for various things. So Elon and his company have shown how they can get people playing video games, Civilization, by thinking about it. Pretty exciting. Of course, it's invasive, but overall, the bandwidths are quite high. Pretty cool. There's something that's semi-invasive called optogenetics, which feels like science fiction. If it didn't exist, I would have a tough time believing it was possible. So basically how this works is you get a needle, and in that needle, it has a payload that goes into to do basically genetic engineering on your brain, where now when your neurons fire, they're also firing photons. And those photons can get picked up by light detectors. And it basically is a high bandwidth way to read signals from your brain. So you can actually see a lot more of what's going on in your brain. And if you look at movies of mouse brains and stuff, of the dynamics, it's just remarkable. You know, chips only get to see one portion. Infrared and stuff only gets to see the outside. With optogenetics, you get to see the whole thing. Interestingly, many of these technologies, they can not only read, but write if you want. Also, by the way, if you don't like what's going on, you can take another needle and turn it off, right? Which is pretty cool. So genetic engineering for the win. Now let's talk about, I've talked about some of the brain scanning technologies. Obviously, there's many more, fMRI and MEG and all this. I'm going to talk about a few stuff that's touching consumers. So in this case, there's one company out there that is using EEGs, electroencephalography, they put them in headphones, and then it tracks basically whether you're focusing or not. And because EEGs, they don't give great resolution, but they can detect if you're in a flow state, right? And if you fall out of the flow state, they give you some lightweight indicator, hey, you're kind of falling out of flow. So let's do something to get you back into flow. So that's one example of quite a nice application of today's technology capabilities. I've talked about typing via EEG. This is an image out of Tsinghua University, China in 2012. For the first time ever, they could get to par with average human typing speeds, 25, 50 words per minute. These days, it's actually gotten much faster. AIs and LLMs have actually reduced the error rate a lot more yet. So you can do quite well typing with EEGs these days. Also, another related technology, emotion detection, right? You can actually have a photo of a person, and AI will tell you, okay, this person is 80% happy, 20% sad, whatever, right? So that's quite useful. But there's ways we could maybe improve upon that too. And by the way, I'm giving you pieces of technology, but what I'm going to be doing after this is assembling these into potential killer apps for BCI. So another thing that's quite simple, there's LCD technology from the 1970s that basically can go on a piece of Scotch tape, and you put it on glasses, right? And you can have subtitles on glasses. And you can get a bit fancier than that. You don't need the Scotch tape. And there's actually companies out there right now that ship glasses that basically have subtitles, right? And there's fancier ones too, of course, but you can have pretty basic technologies to do this. So subtitles on glasses. This is extremely useful right now for deaf people, right? It has some microphone that picks up the speech, runs through an LLM to convert to text, and then puts that text into the subtitles on the glasses. So very nice for deaf people. Another thing, you might all remember Google Glasses from 10, 12 years ago. And at the time, people really didn't like it because of privacy. But, and it was kind of prototypey. But about a year ago, Meta released the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. And these glasses, they have the video camera / camera for photographs. They have a microphone. They have basically speakers via bone conduction, all in a nice integrated unit. And it's talking by Bluetooth to your phone. And so actually, I have a pair of these myself, and I use them all the time to listen to podcasts as I walk around in the sun, to take phone calls, and they've actually blown up. After Meta started selling them, I think they had 2x more sales than they expected. You go to a Ray-Ban store, and all of the employees are using them. So you can view this as one of the first devices towards augmented reality that mainstream actually likes and adopts, right? Before that, there was a lot of other devices that people tried, but never really took off. So this is exciting from the perspective of society is liking it. Interestingly, the Overton window shifted enough that people weren't as concerned about privacy. But we have had 12 years of evolution, 12 years of social media, and so on too. So, for better and for worse, maybe we don't get as much privacy, but at the same time, for some of the augmented reality applications, it's pretty neat. And also from Meta, we have their Quest series. So now we're in the Meta Quest 3, where it's not just virtual reality like the previous two generations, but also mixed reality or augmented reality, where it's pulling in, I might be looking at you in the room wearing these goggles, but then I might see on top of you, all of you are wearing rabbit ears, or some of you are robots and stuff. And in playing with this technology, it's probably the first time I've used a modern AR or VR headset where my brain was truly fooled, right? So, and this is $300 from Amazon or the Meta website or whatever. So it's very good. People were doing technologies close to this 10, 15 years ago, but it would have been $10,000 or $15,000. So this has become, and it's widespread, right? There's something like 20 or 30 million units of this being sold, so this is also mainstream. It's not just Meta. There's other VR headsets. This is just an example. Complementary, Apple Vision Pro came out about 9 months ago, and it is also mixed reality, augmented reality, a $3,500 price tag, but it's actually even higher resolution yet. It's such high resolution that when you put on the glasses and you look at a synthetic glass of wine next to a real glass of wine on the table, your brain can't tell the difference, right? That's remarkable. So that's where we're at for technology there. And this is actually pretty awesome for our interactions with the world and augmented reality. And also it uses eye tracking. Some of the Meta devices use eye tracking too. And eye tracking is very good for controlling things and so on. You can also view eye tracking as a lightweight brain-computer interface device. And finally, in terms of devices, I just think this one's funny. You can DIY, you can do some do-it-yourself stuff. So there's a guy out there on the internet who he lost his eye to cancer, so he took and made an eyeball with a flashlight on it, and he puts it in his eye and walks around, when it's dark out, and now he's got a built-in flashlight. Apparently, it's really good for nighttime reading, and 20-hour battery life. So anyway, kind of fun. I think it's pretty cool that there is DIY stuff like this. Just like there's DIY bio stuff happening and so on, there's DIY, I don't even know what you call this, BCI, I guess, and so on. So I've talked now about how artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence is coming. If we want to have a role in the future as humans, we need to have a competitive substrate. How do we get there? The path is with BCI. And what does that look like specifically? I've talked to you about the state of the art, what's there. How do we combine the state-of-the-art technologies to this potentially exciting, adventurous future? So one thing that's about to happen, Meta has these Meta Orion glasses. They had a video that came out a few weeks ago. And in it, they've got the glasses. It's AR glasses, much better form factor than the goggles. But they also have a wristband. And the wristband is picking up myoelectric signals, which are a reflection, sort of an echo of some brain signals. And you can use them for typing. And for moving a mouse around and so on. So a very nice control mechanism. To give you an idea of how much money Meta has put into this, they've been actually quietly swallowing up a lot of BCI labs. So they acquired control labs for $500 million a few years ago. And that tech is what evolved into this. But of course, it's a much bigger market. The smartphone industry is a $1 trillion industry. And Meta fully intends to attack that industry, to go for that industry with these glasses eating the smartphone, right? And there's a good chance that will happen. Meta and Apple and others. So here's some killer apps that can emerge from this sort of thing. SMing, silent messaging, where you just think about it and you send a text message. And there's a few ways to do that, right? You can do the hand twitching thing, right? Like with the Meta wristband. You can do eye tracking to type, and there's been a lot on that. You can do subvocalization, EEG, whatever, or any combination, right? So we'll see people not just DMing themselves, but SMing each other. And it actually basically, and in terms of display, you'll either have the subtitles on the glasses or audio synthesis, right? And it will feel like telepathy because you're basically not moving, barely moving, and in the end, you're messaging back and forth to your friends and your loved ones and so on. So that's SMing. That's actually a phrase taken from a very archetypical novel, 2006, called Rainbow's End, won the Hugo Award. Another one, so this is, Pinocchio with his advisor, Jiminy Cricket, right? Sitting on his shoulder, giving him advice all the time. But imagine you've got this in your earbuds with an LLM attached, and you're basically thinking thoughts to this, sending queries to the LLM, also via the EEG or eye tracking or otherwise, sending queries to the LLM, and it's giving you audio feedback in your ear. It's your personal Jiminy Cricket. Or you can call it internal dialogue, so getting help to yourself all the time, right? So this is a potential app that will help to drive the widespread use of this stuff. Another one, I talked about emotion detection from photos, but you can't, it's hard to take photos of yourself all the time. This, it's okay? Okay. All right. So I've talked. You don't want to have photos of yourself all the time because you don't. I don't know. How do you take photos of yourself all the time? Have a drone flying? I don't know. But what if instead it picks up signals from the EEG or otherwise for emotion detection that way, right? And then that can be very useful. What if on your Apple Watch or on your glasses it says, hey, you're getting a little bit agitated, you're getting angry. Maybe it's a good idea to count to 10 and calm down, right? Things like that. So that could be very useful as a potential killer app. Going further, so imagine you've got these glasses, you're walking around, And it's recording all the time everything, maybe with built-in privacy preserving where everyone else is anonymized. And then you can query it later just by thinking. So if you have sensors into the visual cortex, then I can close my eyes, think of a thought, say a bouncing elephant, or maybe sitting down at the breakfast table. What did I have for breakfast? Well, it uses that query of me sitting at the breakfast table as a 2D query, so it's reading this black and white image from my brain, the back of my brain, and then querying that into a data bank of what I've seen, and then yanking this image up, right? So you can do image querying, hash perception, all this, and then you basically get perfect memory, right? So everything you've seen and done, you can pull back in the past. And this is potentially very useful. Right now, I do actually have a cognitive augmentation from my memory. She's my wife. She has a wonderful memory and I don't, so it's very useful. But this could be even better and she would probably appreciate it too. Another one is, once you can pull it up that past memory, you can share it easily, right? It's just, a text message away or a silent message away, right? So I pull up this image of something from the past or a video and I share with my friends. And of course, I can keep repeating that all I want. So sharing visual memories can be a thought away if you want. Another one, so in the last few years, we've gotten to very fast content creation by typing in a query into an LLM image generator